Greetings, horse enthusiasts across America and around the world. I'm Andrew A. Turnbull, and this is IHF Live, brought to you by the International Horsemanship Foundation. Tonight, we have a very special guest from Ocala, Florida, and tonight we're going to talk about why to rethink saddle fit. Over 20 years ago, Leticia Glenn's eyes were open to the problems and pain that she and so many other riders unknowingly inflicted on horses. Of course, she wanted to give her own horse the very best, and so she ordered an expensive, custom-made, custom-fitted saddle for her horse. And though it might have seemed to fit him when it was fit him when he was standing still, it was unfortunately really obvious that he didn't really feel comfortable moving in that saddle. And if he didn't feel good in his body, there's no way he could reach his full potential nor be tuned in to what Leticia had hoped in terms of the interface and relationship with her horse. Fast forward to today, Leticia speaks on behalf of Contour Saddlery and its related businesses, promising that it's their privilege to share the key principles that they have learned to fit the horse in motion, providing education tools and techniques to help you and your horse discover your best possible saddle fit is the joy of Letitia's life. Her talented teammates and Leticia, well, they are dedicated to our well-being and our horses' well-being in this sphere. And while her ideas may seem contrary to some long-held saddlery traditions, literally thousands and thousands of horses and riders have discovered this path to maximizing comfort and performance, and that includes my 28-year-old horse, Sunny. We'll talk about that. Leticia Glenn and her team are delighted that we're all pursuing the very best for our riding partners and praises us for daring to rethink saddle fit. Let's give a warm IHF Live welcome to Leticia Glenn of the Contour Saddlery team. And the crowd goes wild.
Yeah,
How are you, young lady?
I am. I am just really enjoying my life at this segment of my life because I feel really excited to share what we've learned, what horses have shared with us, even more than the humans we tried to study with to understand how does a saddle feel, or what would be possible in creating saddle equipment that did not get in the way of the relationship you and your organization promote having with horses, for humans to have a relationship with horses and respect the fact that they are prey animals who get worried about things. If saddle equipment is impactful, how can that do anything but be counter to the whole process? And horses put up with a lot, as we know. Some don't. But as you say, my eyes were opened back in 2001. Actually, it was Linda Pirelli who said, gee, saddles are torture devices. And I thought, well, not mine, because I've done all this special work and I have all these great connections with the best in the world. And then I really, it just hooked me in my heart and my head, maybe not my wise head with regard to investment, because it started me down a path that has been relentless pursuit for me. But that's a long answer to your question. Now that I know the tools that we have developed and the methodologies that are a bit different from tradition, that work from the horse's point of view, I am thrilled. We've developed something that's really significant. I want to share it with everybody because before I croak, I'm going to touch every horse that I can so that you can all enjoy the fact that when you see a warm, soft, round eye with no stress, when you see your horse going down the trail and you know that you've got the rhythmic stride that is really comfortable to him, I can show you some illustrations of the difference. But when you start to recognize whether or not your horse is comfortable, I can show you some simple things that can make a huge difference, or some more expensive things. Buying a new saddle will always be the penultimate way to go
If you
if
get the
you're
right one.
if you get the right one.
Get the right
But
one.
you have to know what to look for in a saddle. And so far, we don't find them out there except the ones that we've built. And we did that over the course of many years and working with really top saddle makers who very often said, "Look, yeah, your ideas are okay, but let me show you how I do it." And we finally said, you know what, we're going to keep our eye on the horses. We're going to have to tune the humans out. And we've been able to do that. We have, I think I've told you, Andrew, we've got at least 10,000 of our saddles in service out there, but even more, we have thousands of people who are able to make their own saddles feel a whole lot better thanks to the um, design of the interface equipment we have developed. And that's what we did with you and Sunny the other day. It was just amazing, wasn't it?
It
How
was
little we had.
wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, hey, really quick before we jump into your presentation, I just want to recognize and say thank you to a bunch of people who are logged in and told us where they're from. I know Margaret is from Bakersfield, California. Lisa's in Texas. Donna's in Texas. Casey's in Massachusetts. We have another Californian, yay, Descanso, California. Whitefish, Montana. Yours truly in Sonoma, California, Sheridan, Wyoming, Fort Worth, southwest of Fort Worth, Nelson, New Zealand. How about that? And Miami, Florida. And those are just the folks that weighed in. And of course, you're here from Ocala, right?
I am, and I've visited all of those places with the exception, unfortunately, of New Zealand. And my good friend Jackie Chant is no longer with us. I don't know if you ever knew her, but it
Jackie, I
is
think I might
taken.
have met her. Yeah.
Just a lovely gal and gone far too soon. But it has taken spending time on ranches and farms from sea to shining sea and all over Australia and Europe to get the opinions of enough horses and enough riders of a variety of disciplines and level of skill to develop this system. This is a saddle system that earns the horse's approval first. That was our main goal in the beginning. And then, of course, we realized quite quickly, unless we had everything perfect for the rider, and it felt like the favorite thing you could possibly sit in from the moment you swing your leg over. Unless we did that, the horses would never get the chance. So that took a lot of experimenting and a lot of travel, and um, it's the joy of my life that we've been able to succeed.
That's awesome. Well, I have your presentation ready up here. Let me, if you like, would you like to go to that next?
Well, I want to do anything I can. And Andrew, now that you've gone through the virtual saddle fit experience with me, where I just watch you through FaceTime or Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever it takes to be able to see you on camera, I can see everything through that lens. And I do coach people all over the world in the process of saddle fitting so they can set things up for success. And then I watch them ride, and it's amazing. You can see everything. Um, and then people get interested in some of the details and invite me to speak for groups and whatnot. So I put together a slide presentation talking about just basic concepts and methodology, and then want to encourage anyone, if you're curious to know if your saddle equipment is serving your horse best and you're not quite sure, please check in to I designed a free saddle fit evaluation system. You will have no pressure to buy anything. If you send us the pictures we ask for and maybe some measurements if you're wondering a couple of things, we can recommend where you can tuck some lifting power in the right place on your horse's body to get your horse's saddle off the part of his body he absolutely needs to have at bare minimum in order to carry you comfortably. So I keep giving you these long answers. Did I
Well,
answer your
that's
question?
okay, but let me, since you brought it up, one of the things that I want to put into perspective, because when we get to the part where we talk about the saddle fit, and I made a 1 minute promo, it's on our Facebook page, and um, because I wanted people to get kind of the summary of it, but it's a 48-minute final version of the saddle fit. But one of the things that I want to tell you guys, and I'll tell you again a little later in the call, I've been following relationship-based horsemanship, depending on whatever name you want to call it, natural horsemanship, heart-centered, um, relationship-based horsemanship for 25 years. It's been 24 years since I met the Pirellis. It's been about 23 years since I met Letitia in Pagosa Spring, Colorado. And I've been a continuous student. I've also invested in what I believed at each point the right thing for my horse. But what was remarkable was that my horse still looked at me different at the end and said, "Wow, you finally got it." And so I had to have an open mind. And you have to, of course, I think most of the people that are on this call, we tend to, IHF Live people who are here, we tend to have an open mind and a student always mind. But you'll, if you, when you watch the tape, and it's already released on our YouTube channel, you'll see that I had a lot to learn. And in fact, I was using the equipment incorrectly. And Letitia pointed out that there were problems that I had actually created some problems for my 28-year-old horse who has been carrying me for 19 years and has been in my family for 20. And so I just want to say up front before we go into this, uh, yes, we can all learn something. And I believe that because Letitia, and one of the reasons I invite her on this show is because she's literally moving the dial in the revolution in horsemanship that we talk about in the show. But because she's moving the dial, it's even moving the dial for my own horse. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, thank you." So let's go to your.
Yeah. None of us mean to hurt our horses. And my gosh, we go to the nth degree to not do so. Most of us, anyone who would be in this audience, there are a lot of people who use them up as tools. There's no question about that. But when we don't know, because tradition has offered opinions about um, saddle
Yeah.
equipment and how it should be built and how it should be fit and where you put it on your horse's body, and then you start to question those things and really notice the horses. um, you can really be enlightened, and you feel terrible because you never meant to do anything that would hurt your horse, and we all have done it. So now I'm trying to get the word out, and this little slide presentation I put together is about 15 minutes. It just basically talks about really simple principles, that when we bring some assumptions to it. But let's get started. We'll just quickly go through that, and there's some slices of some video before and after. This is a horse who we painted this grid on years ago, just to see if we could take a look in isolation of the different parts of his body in motion. And once you see that, I don't think anyone can watch that and not see those moving parts of the shoulders. They bulge and expand and go backward and forward. The spine snakes, and the rump just twists and moves in such a way that you think, I would never want to strap anything static down on that would trap that movement. What we can't see in this video, and this is, as I say, we did this maybe 25 years ago, this little piece of video. What we can't see is there's another phenomenon. When the horse is powered up to carry weight, it lifts the back and it becomes really essentially flat from croup to wither, if possible, unless you've got age and damage involved. Even a horse that's conformed with a low center back will lift pretty much close to all the way from the croup to wither. And when they're carrying weight, they broaden out. It's not just the shoulders that bulge under the front of the saddle, though it bulges very far back under the front of the saddle, but they actually get flat, and that doesn't show here. Okay.
Well, I
Okay.
thought this was amazing because this certainly proves the point that if we're making a static saddle and we're sitting it over this much movement, chances are that something's not quite right. Yeah,
Yeah, how can that be comfortable?
yeah. And then this
All
is
right.
goes to the VersaFit.
Yeah, I renamed our company VersaFit. We established it as Natural Horseman Saddles years ago in 2001. And we're very proud to make all the Pirelli saddles. The Pirelli audience was of huge importance, and Pat and Linda personally, in the development of our early equipment, because they always had about 100 people studying on campus. And so that was a great factory of, I won't say guinea pigs, well, I just said it, but people
But you
who
had a
were
study
curious and
location.
willing. Oh,
You had a
yeah, who
study
were it
location,
was
right?
studying.
Yeah.
I had a pool of people who cared enough about their horses to risk trying some new things with us while we figured it out. And the shims you had in your pad were part of our early figuring it out. But
Mhm.
we apparently didn't get the information out there to you enough to know that the way you were using it wasn't quite right. Then again, our brains absorb at whatever degree, one thing at a time. And it's hard to get all the messages out there, but here we are. We're on our way. Okay. So Contour Saddlery, because we make the Pirelli saddles, we make English saddles, which are Glenn saddles. We have a variety of brands underneath Natural Horseman Saddles, underneath that umbrella. But I wanted a name that was innocuous enough. Nobody's going to argue with it and say, oh, I really don't think I like natural horsemanship or so or whatever. And I didn't want the name of our company to be a barrier to entry for people who were new to this and who were not as excited about challenging tradition. Anyway, so Contour Saddlery, that works for me. And I just designed the logos, and I designed the Pirelli logo too, by the way, years ago.
Oh, is that
But
right?
yeah.
Good for
And
you.
then, and then also along with that, I thought there are some people who are just not even going to want to approach the subject of buying a new saddle. And I certainly understand that. It's a big expense. But if I could have the pad and interface shim line have a different name, then perhaps we can help people understand that just a small tweak can make a big difference in your horse from what we've learned our years of
Yep.
studies. We call our pad and shim line the VersaFit, customizing saddle pad systems. Okay,
Awesome.
all right, here we go. All right, so we always want to acknowledge that the saddle, it isn't all about the saddle. There are four basic components of riding success: the horse, the rider, the saddle, and what we call the interface. And so I'll explain very briefly what those are, and it's just an acknowledgement. Go ahead, Andrew. Go
Okay.
ahead to the horse. Horse, this should move as a video. Somehow it came through to you in slides, but that's all right. Horse, now go on down. And then the horse, I've drawn the scapula on there because that's a very big feature. Um, hopefully to help
Yeah,
people.
and I want to just stop you for a minute on this because during the saddle fit, she held up a scapula and oh,
I
you
got it right here.
yeah, right there. It's a remarkable and it's kind of neat to see it on this picture because you see where it how it sits in the anatomy. However, she made a real point that we finding out where this scapula is just really one of the principal key things. And there's a few
Yeah,
basic
we'll go into
principles.
that.
This is one of
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
that's right. Okay, so the scapula, where is it when the horse is standing and where's it going to go when he's moving? Okay, so the horse, we bring the assumption that ideally we've got a healthy animal, the feet, the teeth, the body, the mind. He's not sore. This is if you're going to ride him, you do your best to keep all of these things up to snuff. You want him to be balanced and you want him to be emotionally safe within himself and connected with you, the rider. Okay, so that's the horse. That's component number one. The rider, go ahead, keep going, Andrew. The rider ideally is also healthy, comfortable in the seat of the saddle. He's balanced with good posture, he or she, capable of self-carriage, not hanging on to the reins, embracing in the stirrups and that sort of thing, and is emotionally secure and connected to the horse. And that is a lifetime study, as we know. Okay, go ahead. So component number three is the saddle, as we've come to know the importance of it. Go ahead, Andrew. The saddle should be, ideally, it should encourage healthy natural movement. And the only way to do that is that the underside of it is shaped very generously. Not like, as I always said and said to you the other day, not like a birdhouse roof on a beach ball. It needs to be generous and welcoming a horse's uplifted and horizontally expanding body, because the horse doesn't stay the same set of shapes he is when he's standing. It's a completely different set of shapes from the moment he takes his first step. So it's not shaped at the horse's shoulders and back while he's standing still. Saddle fitters, you still see them on television. If you Google how to fit a saddle, you will see you must mirror the angle of the horse's shoulder, and the horse is standing there saying, if you do that, then what's going to happen when I try to move?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trapped, pinched to whatever degree. Okay, it should have. Now we tested all kinds of saddles, and of course it seemed like treeless saddles were a good idea. They would offer freedom. And we thought, what a wonderful idea. And we tested quite a number of them, but it was clear that universally the problem with a treeless saddle is it doesn't have the strong internal skeleton to distribute the rider weight. So after about 15 minutes, the horses would begin to drop their backs just ever so slightly, and then it gets worse and worse. And as they drop their backs, their heads are elevating or in reverse order, and the head goes up, the back drops, the abdominal sling drops a bit. The hips, therefore, will rotate a little bit forward from the top. The hind end will be strung out more than it should be. And it's not a good thing. Treeless saddles are not a good thing. The horse's body will deteriorate over time. We haven't seen that not happen, unfortunately.
Oh man.
So the saddle, of course, must balance the rider extremely comfortably while accommodating the horse. Okay, next slide.
Okay.
All right.
This one again. Right?
Yeah, I just never tire of this. But so you'll
Yeah, it's
see,
amazing.
we eventually built our saddle trees with bars and ground seat that would flex and move with that motion. So you can see it's a very thin material instead of wooden tree bars. It's just flexible enough, but it doesn't collapse like many flexible trees, and it's not too rigid like some flexible trees. It moves, it enables you to move in harmony with your horse's body like nothing you'll find on the market. It's really a phenomenal piece of equipment. And we can put different forks and candles on depending upon the style of riding you like to do or what you like to look at. And whether or not you want the kind of candle that can wrap you very securely, a butt wrapping saddle, or something with a more open seat. We've got a variety of 20 some different Western models and a half a dozen English models by now. Our English saddles are not the same sort of tree. We make them in England, and they are a traditional beechwood spring tree, but crafted to our shape. It took rebuilding the molds and the jigs and all sorts of expensive stuff to get our trees shaped to welcome the horses back. Okay,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
thank you. All right, the fourth component, which is the most under-discussed and acknowledged component of riding success, is the interface. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay.
And we call it the interface. It's the space between your horse's body and the underside of the saddle. And it needs to be customizable in order to give the horse comfort for life, no matter what stage of conditioning or age or whatever. You need to be able to customize that interface, and you can live with the right saddle for the rest of your life. And that one saddle can fit most horses in the barn, usually, if you customize the interface. The pad should be quite cushioning and conforming in order to feel wonderful. And the shims, and we tried a medical felt in the beginning once we realized we needed to have shims to lift pressure off those working shoulders at the very least. But we realized it would be better. I mean, I just kept thinking we've got to be able to taper it, and we can't taper felt. So I found a substance that's just a very special texture of foam. It's we call it the right amount of support and squish, and we built molds, and so you have a lifting portion of the shim, and then you have a taper. I'll show you later that transitions along your horse's body. And if you know where to put this shim, and your horse doesn't feel it, it just lifts pressure off the working shoulders, and then the horse can move. You cannot, if you drop the shoulders, we learned the rest of the biomechanics simply do not work. Okay, go ahead, Andrew. How can you tell if a horse might be struggling due to an ill-fitting saddle? Go ahead, Andrew. So to cultivate your eye, I've just written down a few things, just 5 basic points. There are lots more, and we have little charts on our website. If you get really into this, manic the way I did, I mean, I went nuts trying to understand. um, let's just look at some basic things. I put some pictures up here of. Go ahead. A stress horse, you can see the tension in that horse, and I'll explain it in a bit. Okay, keep going, Andrew. Versus a comfortable horse, you can just see right there, much more relaxation is very obvious. But keep going, and we'll just talk about some specific points. In stressed, uncomfortable horse when traveling, the head will nod up. It may be held high, but even at the walk, if you see a horse, I'm watching the Olympics and I'm seeing it, and it makes me sick. If the head nods up at the walk, and sometimes it's a little subtle to see, that horse is contracting along the top line and dropping its underline. During transitions or stops, you'll often see the head shoot up when a horse is jammed behind the shoulders. Often the head and neck will look shorter than the body, as it does in this horse, and the strides will be short and choppy. Look at those pasterns. They're slamming all the way down on the turf because he's carrying his weight on the forehand, which is not where you want your horse to carry weight. The neck will be tense and skinny looking, and very often will bulge on the underside of the neck. And overall, the horse looks like he's stiff and working hard. Can you see that? Does that look obvious to you, Andrew?
Oh yeah, definitely see it in the photo with the, well, first of
Yeah,
all, you have the high tail, the
yeah,
ears back. Of course, it doesn't mean they're always ears,
yeah.
but the,
Nose in the air.
yeah, as you describe it, that looks like all of
Anyway,
it.
just at the very least, if you look for that head nodding up as you're heading down the trail, just stop and get off and put a shim in,
There
and
you
I'll show
go.
you where to put it. Okay, go ahead. Comfort, the head nods down. You can see the top line stretches in an arced way. The head and neck are generally, this camera's shot's a little off angle. I took it. We don't have enough before and afters because I'm always out there doing it myself, and I can't talk to everybody and hold the camera, and I
No,
need
we need to hire our camera people.
we need to, yeah. I have to keep the budget down, or the set will be more expensive. So the top line stretches, and the head neck look as long as the body. And this, it's a softer, deeper neck, from the mane down to the chest. It's thicker instead of skinny and tense. And overall, it just looks like more effortless travel by comparison to the other. Okay, well, I think I put the slides one. Go ahead, go. Okay, Rethink Saddle Fit. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, this is the same. Yep.
Sorry, hope you don't get tired of that. But
No, I
there,
don't get tired of it. It's great.
there they are contrasting. And I can tell you that woman, that was her Arabian endurance horse. She was curious to know what our saddles would feel like. She'd heard about us. And I couldn't stand watching her go in her saddle very long. So I said,
Mhm.
okay, let's change. And what you see on the right is less than one trip around the arena. It's just, I always say, please start with your reins all the way out so the horse doesn't feel any pressure in the face, and let him calibrate underneath you, and because it's going to feel very, very different. And she was incredulous, and you
Mm.
can see it, can't you? And that's less than one trip around the arena. He's ridden thousands of hours, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles on endurance in that saddle that she had on the left. Why he didn't pitch her into next week, I mean, it's hard to know. They're an amazing animal. Oh, this is a little bit of video here. Okay. This gal is a barrel racer, and I asked her if she maybe
Okay, all right, let's see.
I asked her if she could get her hand in the front, underneath the front of the saddle.
It goes up.
She couldn't. She couldn't. It was too tight.
Walk off
And
with a nice long rein. Head is nodding up already.
see, that may look subtle till you develop your eye for it, but can you see that?
Yeah, I see it in my own horse now because we've
Yeah,
looked at video before and after, but I
yeah,
see it in this one now.
yeah. And that's not as horrible as some I see. It's not as bad as that Arabian we just looked at. But
Right.
you'll see the difference in a minute. And all we did is change saddle equipment and use a pad and shims, of course.
Okay.
This is still before, yeah, but okay.
Is
So that,
this more before?
that still looks like, yeah, it says before up in the left. So I
Okay.
don't know, something's wrong.
Yep.
So
Just
go
some more
down.
detail. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. You can go down now.
Okay. So we rethought the saddle fit, changed the
Sure.
equipment.
Rethink
Okay.
saddle. Okay, go down.
Again, they're making the
I don't
point.
want to bore you all. Keep
It's
going.
okay. You're not boring us. This is great. We're all
All
learning
right.
together.
Now, see how thick his neck looks and how he's beginning. And again, this is less than a trip around the arena.
Wow. You can see the head down.
Yeah, and you see his rump looks nice and round and his head and neck look long.
Yeah, he looks like he's taking a casual walk.
Yeah, and I'm sure I put some a before and after slide, a still slide in there.
Okay. You
But
just want to run
doesn't
that
he
one more
look now
time.
that looks like a different horse, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Compared to the so let's go down to the next one and yeah, now you can see. To me, that is so dramatic. It makes me cry every time to tell you the
Yeah.
truth, to
The
realize
good
what that
tears,
horse
right?
has gone through. See how short and tense his head and neck look in the first one,
Hmm.
compared to how deliciously thick that neck looks. And you see how he's dropping his back, so there's a little hollow where she's sitting when he's tense, because he's tense along the top. And I often say, and I think I did it to you the other day, if you just imagine the corner of a book in your backpack,
Hmm.
just close your eyes and imagine that. You kind of shrink away from it. You can just picture your brain tells your body to contort yourself a little bit to just get away from that pressure. And if you've got pressure in the left shoulder, you're going to feel your belly drop. You're going to not be able to lift your knees as high climbing the hills with your backpack. Your hip is going to your right hip, your left shoulder and your right hip are kind of going to contort together. And then if you anyway, so that's it. The horse is contorting to get away from discomfort.
Now, in this particular case, is it fair to say that you wouldn't have thought that she could correct her saddle enough? Or because I noticed that it's a different saddle, right?
It is a different saddle. As a matter of fact, I do have, and maybe that'd be a good thing to do is more of that. I later on in this, I show one where all we did is change the pad and shims, but we always
Okay.
do try that. We try, and her, it makes it about 50% better, at least according to our research, and we have had scientific studies to add our interface pad and shims with a bad saddle. It can make it a whole lot better.
Yeah, 50% better.
And
Okay.
then adding the saddle makes it 100% better. And this is based on studies and lots of um,
Yeah.
markers.
Okay.
But
Now we have a
here,
before. This guy's,
here's him. This guy loves this horse, and he saw us at an expo over at the World Equestrian Center, and he was curious. And this is a treeless saddle, and this is a 25-year-old Tennessee walking horse stallion that he loves so much. But you can see the horse is miserably uncomfortable. They have a great relationship, except for this.
wow.
Um, and he just,
Now look how tightly he's moving his back feet. It's almost like he does, they're not moving.
yeah, yeah. And you see he's bulging on the under neck. So the horse is throwing himself and pulling himself along with this underline.
Yeah.
And yeah, and hollowing his back, head going up.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Okay. All right. We've seen enough.
Okay. Cool. Now this
All
is the
right. So now
same beautiful Palomino.
this is all right. It's him. We took the saddle off, and this is what he looks like. So he's 25 years old, and he's quite hollow. He's more hollow than Sonny.
Okay.
Yeah. And okay. So then I couldn't make this little slideshow long enough, but I do have video of tickling his belly and seeing how high he could lift, and then putting in the right shim, and then putting on a saddle with a tree in it that was shaped to welcome us. So this is his first trip around the arena. Is it going to play? Come on.
Oh, mine's playing here. He's moving. Okay, are you not seeing the play yet?
No, it's jumpy.
Oh,
We'll see. Yeah, it's just jumping, but that's all right. Keep going.
you know what I could do? Let me just,
Yeah.
okay. Let me back him up here.
Well, I've got still pictures side by side, so you can at least see it and get the idea. But the horse becomes a lot more maneuverable when they've got room under the shoulders. We have a lot of cutters using shims now because they can reach from side to side. But this horse before, when he tried to turn it, I don't know if you noticed, he looked more like a boat in the water that was very stiff as
Mm-hmm.
he went around in a turn. And now he's able to. All right, so
If
just
you want to
go
go
on.
to the before and after.
Yeah, I think I remember one gal there that I mean that was the difference right there. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and our
And
viewers will see.
if
Um,
that horse could scream in pain, he would. And yet
oh God, yeah, you can see it. And this is the
so
same. Is it same saddle or new saddle on this one?
that's a new saddle.
New saddle. Okay.
His is a treeless saddle, so that's
Oh
classic.
yeah, that's right. You said
They get
treeless.
hollower, more and more hollow over time. And they sounded like such a good idea. But as I say, we researched everything. We didn't want to make saddles. I wanted to find saddles that we could bring to all the people studying at Pirelli and get feedback about which ones to recommend. And we'd put them in the Pirelli collection. But anyway,
Yeah, you
so
end up having to vertically integrate, create
yeah,
saddles. Got
yeah,
it.
three and a half years and 8 prototypes.
Wow.
Okay, hollow-backed horses. This is a subject. A lot of people tend to think that if they have bridging problem, pressure at the front and the back, they should stuff the center with a bunch of stuff. I'm seeing blankets and towels folded and things like that. What that really does is block the horse's ability to come up, and he can get stronger if he can come up, if there's room to come up under the rider in the saddle. So I just want to make the point that if you've got a hollow backed horse, especially take advantage of our free saddle fit evaluation so we can recommend how much um, little bit of shim you might need to create the connection. Like the people who watched that Palomino, there was one gal in the audience, I heard her gasp out. She said, I feel like I'm watching a magic show.
Wow.
It was amazing. The horse changed so much, but I did put a thin shim in the center as well as protection for the shoulder range of motion, and then um, a little shim in the rear so that there was a connection, and it didn't sink down into the hole
Hmm.
that was his back. And he's much that man now has gotten a second horse. He's come back and bought a second saddle. He said, I don't want either of my horses ever going at anything else again. Okay,
Oh,
so
wow. That's a great
let's see if
story.
this video would play.
Okay. This
I
is
think
a,
I put, yeah,
okay, I'm going.
yeah, this is, all right, let's see. Mine isn't moving at all. All right, so I'm talking about this, finding the scapula bone, and then we'll go over that later.
Back of his, whoa, look how far back that goes. Look at the size of that thing. Can you imagine that
So,
under a pinchy saddle?
so,
Okay.
so there's a big chunk of muscle that appears when you lift the leg and pull it forward. There's a bulge of muscle, and behind that bulge is where you're going to want to put the lifting power of a shim, and I'll explain that later. But that is critical to the horse's way of going. Okay, whoops. Now
Oh,
I'm
look
going
at
to
there.
see how high he comes up.
Yeah, look at that lift.
So you don't want to block that. So I'm just trying to make a point with that.
Wow. Yeah, that was remarkable how much he lifted when
Yeah,
you were tickling underneath. Yeah.
it would be so much more comfortable that he'd have to stretch his head and neck out to be able to do that, right? And power up to carry his rider. And he
Yeah, if
feels
it's okay, I'm gonna play it again for, because you're showing where is the
back edge of the
scapula.
scapula bone. The bone, and we talk about the 4 B's. There's the bone, and then
Whoa, look how far back that goes. Look at the size of that thing. Can you imagine
and
that?
then there's the bulge, a big bulge of muscle. And then the third B is behind the bulge. That's where you need to think about the lifting power of a shim. And then the fourth B is the saddle balance. We'll talk about that.
Bag here. Little improved. It's almost higher in the truth, but this is an illusion. Watch what happens.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Almost flat. He almost went.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And that's what we build our saddles to welcome that, because that's what horses love. We will not build a saddle that is as narrow as full quarter horse bars. That's one thing the horses told us in our research. People think full quarter horse bars are wide saddles. They're not. They're not wide enough for the smallest narrow horse.
Wow.
So our standard gullet is 10 degrees wider than full quarter horse bars, but that's not just setting the bars apart, not like two by fours, that you spread apart. We don't do that. It's a sculpted thing that we learned by building many, many prototypes and watching horses till we got their approval. 3.5 years and 8 prototypes to get the right shape.
Wow.
Okay, let's go. All right, so here's the still version. That's not the same Andalusian, but this is Courtney Crane's Andalusian. She's an excellent rider.
Courtney, yay!
Yeah,
she's awesome.
You can see, even though Melly, that's the name of her horse, is exercised very well, he still, when he's standing, has a low center back. But when she tickles him, he comes up to flat and he becomes uphill. His withers are higher than his croup. And then when she can ride him, because her saddle is so generous, he's got all the room in the world to
interesting.
Yep.
So would you go a little bit slower in walking us from picture to picture? Because I believe I understood what you said, but I'd like you to go just to do it again.
All right. So this is Courtney's, I think he was about 12 years old. That prior Andalusian was more like 18 years old. And I'm on a personal mission to prove that an Andalusian doesn't have to have a back like a hammock by the time he's 15. But they do have naturally a low center, those Iberian breeds. And so I just wanted to illustrate that when they're tickled, they power up. See how his abdominal muscles are contracted and he's pushing up. And if you had a camera from up above, he would be quite a bit more broad where the rider sits also. Plus those shoulders bulge broadly and alternatively. And so the whole thing means you need a generous U-shaped saddle. You don't want a V-shaped upside down V. You want a U shape to welcome that. And so there's that. Okay.
Awesome. No, thank you for doing that. And of course, that's at Happy Horse Haven. I had the pleasure of visiting there recently. That's great.
Right. He's listening to her. He's not unhappy with those ears. All right. And I don't know whether this next one is a thoroughbred coming down.
Okay.
I don't know whether it'll play for everybody. This
looking great for me.
Is it playing? Okay. And look, his neck looks kind of skinny, and it gets worse when she asks him to trot. And his head is nodding up, but my video isn't playing, so I can't see that.
That's a classic sign of a horse traveling on the with using its underline, not its top line, except contracting its top line. Okay.
And that head's going up.
And look at
Is it playing for everybody else?
Compared to the angle of that saddle.
Unfortunately, while I'm in this mode, I can't check with the audience, but it will play on the live. I mean, I hope. Oh, wait, now I can see the chat. Hold on.
Oh, Donna Robinson is saying, yes, I can see it. Okay.
Oh, good. Okay, so it might just be might be all the way to Florida.
The more she rides, The more she's riding him, the skinnier that neck is getting. Then she asks for a little trot here, and he goes, "Oh, really? Is this too subtle, or are people seeing it?"
Lisa in Texas and Donna Robertson are both seeing it, and I'm seeing it great. It looks beautiful here.
See how skinny?
So she's trotting, of course, toward the end of the video there.
You see, the head is high. He's not able to use himself as nature intended, as we always say.
Right. Yeah, that looks like
He's
a
not
high head.
powered up to carry her. He's just getting through it.
Yeah, I was taking a look for the legs and how well they move. Hope says it's perfect animal college, so maybe it's your bandwidth.
Well,
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks for the feedback there, Hope. I appreciate it. Okay, then
she
this
said,
is the after. We're rethinking,
here
changing.
we go. Here we go.
Okay.
Keep going.
And so I'm on the after here.
Now,
Oh my gosh, I can already see it right away. The head's down.
yeah, and that was he walked off like that.
Cool.
You think of how many hours he had traveled feeling trapped. So how new it must feel to him. And this is pretty wild child. This thoroughbred, as I remember, I think he had put her in the hospital with a lot of broken bones, and she was fine.
Well, if they're not moving right, geez, you don't know.
Yeah, they're a prey animal. So if they don't feel comfortable, they're not going to feel safe, right?
What's interesting, Linda Pirelli was talking to us at our most recent, when I was able to ride with her with Sunny, about the horse feeling trapped. And that we trap the horse, and we had a lot of discussion around the idea of trapping. This certainly seems like the before is a trapping kind of experience, right?
Extremely, absolutely. It's the saddle equipment is the most impactful piece of equipment in your whole life with your horse. And if it traps his natural way of going, you've got a horse that will tend to be spookier on the trail. Will tend
Now we're seeing that lope, heads down a little bit.
Yeah. And this is his first time. So imagine, in fact, later she sent a picture a year and a half later. She bought the saddle and had everything and studied with Linda and became a better rider and sent a picture of her horse. And I think I put it in this presentation.
Okay.
See, and he's running away with her a little bit because
he's probably delighted. Probably haven't felt that good in years, right? At least with somebody on top.
You can see that his top line is more of an arc rather than an upside down U.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So more rhythmic in his way of going and definitely more comfortable.
Yeah, now his head's dropping.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, you can really see it.
Isn't that pretty? Oh.
Yeah,
By
that is beautiful.
By comparison.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I'm starting to feel the emotion too.
Yeah.
Looking at it.
I'm not kidding you. I cry every time.
I hear you. I don't blame you. Yeah.
Look at the difference.
Well, knowing what you're doing, knowing what you're bringing to
the walk, and I have pictures of the trot and the canter, the before and after too, but I didn't want to make this too long. Yeah. And then she sent me 2.5 years later. Look at that. Wait till you see him. That's the same horse with good riding and using that saddle. So he's able to develop his muscles. Isn't that astonishing?
It is. You can see the body just looks better. Look at the hind end on the horse in the after. You see so much developed.
Right. Very often you'll see in a horse that can't carry himself properly, you'll see the hip angle to tail be very angular instead of round, because the gluteal muscles are underdeveloped while the muscles on the top of the hip are overdeveloped because of the way they're forced to travel.
Well, you're teaching me how to look at it. I didn't know how to look at this before. This is great. Okay, and this is the Palomino.
Here's another one. This is the same one.
Yeah, you can see
a different Palomino. This is an
Oh, different Palomino. Okay.
English, yeah, different Palomino. So
Yep.
you can just see the tension versus, and that again is her walk off. I mean, right away. Okay, what's next? I'm trying to remember what
How can you have confidence your saddle isn't the way, wait, isn't
Okay,
in the way of your comfort and performance? Right.
right. Keep going. Okay, this is what you need. You need to make sure your saddle doesn't restrict the moving shoulders, and you can do that with any saddle with a tapered foam shim in the right place. And if you can, have a saddle that has generous room and broad surface underneath without pressure points so it can welcome your horse's lifting and expanding back while in motion. And of course, it needs to balance your seat so your body can be in harmony with your horse's movement. That's another thing. Many saddles put the rider positioned in the wrong place. Okay, go ahead further. Let's go back. Oh, this is, I was very pleased to be invited by Riddle University in England, wanted to do a study with 9 horses, and they asked me to send saddles over, and they were going to compare it with their saddles, their custom made saddles or their off the rack saddles or whatever the students had with their 9 horses. And they were going to do iris stress tests and stride quality analysis by putting photosensitive dots on the side of the horse, and they'd ride past a camera and the camera would assess the stride quality. And of course, tech scan pressure mapping on the horse's back. So I thought, if I send our equipment over, they won't know how to use the pad and shims and we'll get bad data. So I asked if I could come over and show them at least one horse and how to set it up properly. So we did that. And okay, and this was typical. I wish with the observation I was doing with the actually was 2 or 3 horses that weren't going to be in the study, extra ones they brought out so that I could show them how to use the stuff. But that was a typical scan in their own equipment. See how you can see the red, yellow, orange? That
So
indicates,
this part up here, that's just up in the upper
yeah,
left
that
corner.
was a running video, and I just took a screenshot of the computer. And I wish I had taken more. She would have let me, but I was trying to be not rude. But
Hmm.
okay, so
So this
um,
was showing about that's the pressure, right? Yeah.
yeah, so that's the pressure. So then we put ours on, and the whole screen is blinking blue like this. No pain
Wow.
points at all. And the director of research, Dr. Roberta, was watching the computer, and the horse is behind her, the big arena's behind her. And I just couldn't resist when I saw her screen. I said, Dr. Godoy, what do you think? And I have her on video, and I didn't in this, but she turned to me and she said, what do I think? This is amazing. She said, is there a saddle on that horse?
Oh,
Is there a
wow.
is there a rider in a saddle on that horse? She said, there is no pressure.
That's awesome.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. Oh, and one of the things we did is put the saddles on the mechanical horse that they have over there. And it's really fun. That thing will canter, it'll do any gait. And I'd never ridden one. I'm up on it. But as I was putting our saddle on it, I could see that the mechanical horse itself had dents behind the scapula
Oh
from
my.
bad saddles. Because they make saddles so narrow. They make them like they're for a Rottweiler or a Greyhound, not a horse. It's just,
Wow.
and they lock them down behind the scapula. And that's why you see these holes behind. Very often you'll see overdevelopment of the scapular region, and then behind that is a hollow, right? Some of these horses, you could stick a grapefruit in that hole, and that should be muscle.
Yeah. Huh.
How miserable it must be for the horse to have his shoulder slammed and have to carry himself inverted and not be able to develop that muscle behind the shoulder.
Wow.
Oof. Okay. Dents in that horse. I couldn't believe it. Okay, keep going. No matter what saddle you ride or how well it's constructed, I don't care if it's custom made or whatever, we have learned you must pay attention to the interface. Contour the space between the underside of your saddle and your horse's body. As your horse is moving and changing dynamically, plus he's changing between the seasons, there are all kinds of So there's no way it can feel as good as your horse deserves if you don't use at least a thin tapered foam shim, where I'll show you to put it. Okay, your
Your
interface
interface is the
key
key to
for
comfort and performance. Yeah.
and it is. And it may seem complicated, but don't worry. We figured it out. And that's my mission now, is to get this word out there. Okay, here we go. Keep going. Keep going. Okay.
So we're
Okay.
super
How
simple
to
saddle
make any
fitting.
saddle-
Okay.
how to make any saddle feel much better to any horse.
Oh,
You need a
great.
saddle pad which offers supreme pressure protection directly under your saddle, but no bulk under your legs, so that you can be close to him, but he's protected. And it should auto adjust in some way and conform softly to customize the fit during the ride. We make two different kinds of pads. One that has the air cells in it, like yours, which you've had that pad for over 20 years, right? And it's still
Yeah,
functioning. It's a great piece of, there's not a
still
better.
works.
Yeah.
Well, it works if I use it right.
Yeah. Well, and I developed another pad because some people just don't want to mess with the air cell valves. They feel intimidated or whatever. So I knew we needed something. So did a lot of research about substances that could be in the core of the pad, just under the saddle tree bars. That's all you need. And we settled on a foam that's a very special foam. It's not your grandma's memory foam at all. It's an incredible substance. And
Is
then
that
then
the
you put
phone that you handed to me when I was in your office and you
yes. And if you
felt, yeah, I
stand,
remember that. I was like, wow, it's
yeah,
different.
and if you stand on a piece of it, you can feel the comfort come through your shoes, can't you? I mean,
Yes, it was
it's like
amazing. Yeah,
relief. So you can
yeah,
imagine what it would mean under the bars of your saddle to your horse.
yeah.
And pad needs to have pockets that can house these tapered foam shims. And you can put them in the right place. And many pads that have shim pockets these days, you'll notice, have vertical seams in them. Usually there are three sections. And if you have one of those pads and you don't want to get a new pad, just rip the seams out, because they force you to put the shim too far forward where it's right on top of the shoulder, which is adding pressure to the shoulder. You don't want to do that. Or they force you to put it in the middle. It's got the three pockets, right? And if you put the
Hmm.
shim in the middle, you're sitting on it and you're holding the back down vis-a-vis what you saw, the way the horse wants to lift. And then the rear one, that, if you used one back there, that's not horrible if you needed it. But take all the seams out so that you put the shim where you need it for your horse's body. Okay?
Okay.
And I'll explain how to figure that out.
Now these are what I got used to because you sent me a big
Right.
package of them,
We
and
make we make those three shapes in two thicknesses, because I found when we first started building these that are about half-inch to 5-inch thick, and then they taper to nothing. And they all nest together if you should have a really sick horse who needs all three shapes, and you overlap them with each other. Um, but rarely do you need more than one set of shims to preserve that shoulder. But sometimes a horse just doesn't need that much thickness. It just
mhm.
needs a little relief. So I was taking a bread knife as we were traveling around and studying with all these people who were willing to be guinea pigs. I would cut the shim in half with a bread knife horizontally, and I found that half that thickness worked very often for many horses.
I like
So,
your precision tools. You had to really
yeah,
you had to go out and find just that precision
right.
tool. A bread
But it's
knife. I love
those
it.
are just, they have a wonderful texture to them. They're just strong
They
enough to
do.
really
They're really
support
neat.
it, but
Yeah.
yeah, nice and squishy. So we make the same shapes in two different thicknesses, a half thick and that thick.
All
So,
right.
okay. Up. So that's my mission. Help riders be confident about how to set their saddles up in their face. I love doing video conferences like we did, Andrew. I mean, I really love it because it works every time. I do
Hmm.
whole groups of people, therapeutic riding centers. I did the Vancouver, British Columbia Mounted Patrol the other day. They got
Awesome.
emotional. They couldn't believe the difference. I love it, but I can see everything through the camera. And it starts with a free saddle fit evaluation, because we really want to, my whole team feels as I do, we're on this mission to touch as many horses as we can before I croak. and then onward.
Yeah.
And I'm 80 years old now, so I don't know how much time I got. Okay.
But you
The
know what? I want to hold on that for a minute because I was going to bring it up because well, at least I virtually celebrated your birthday since you're in California, you're not, but we were very excited when the very vivacious and enthusiastic and energetic Leticia Glenn turned 80 years old. And between Dr. Miller, who's 97 now, Debbie Miller, who's 91, still riding regularly, downhill skiing, and you, with all this passion, you're showing us all how it's done. And I'm so proud of you. It's wonderful to be inspired by you.
Thank you. I'm honored you feel that way, but I tell you, I just feel lucky to have a mission I feel this strongly about. I can't wait to get out of the bed every morning and just get going and help. I don't ride my own horse enough, but I I I love it.
Running on profit, I can explain a similar experience. Yes. And the
I
passion
love
is there. I love your passion. We talked about that a lot, but we'll talk about that in a minute when we finish up.
horses. When you see the horses make a change, that's so dramatic. It's emotional. Okay, so in trying to make it simple, just go to the 4 Bs. Yep, because that's what I want people to get.
Okay, and I'm looking at the critical 4Bs for saddle fit. You want to remind us what those are?
All right, so we've concocted a simple way to explain basic principles that are critical no matter what saddle you ride. Okay, super simple saddle fitting. If you remember these principles, and they are non-traditional, so you're going to have people who argue with you. But you just try it. Your horse will tell you. All right, remember the 4 Bs. Critical. One, every rider must know where is the back of their horse's scapula while he's standing. And you can feel it with your fingertips, where your fingertips curl over the back edge of his scapula bone, where it drops off into fleshy flesh. That's going to tell you how to position your saddle. And an English saddle will go behind your curled fingertips, and a Western saddle will flare out over them just a little bit, but your fingertips should be right where the front part of your concho on your saddle, the front concho, about the front third of it, where your fingertips curl over. And that will put the cinch or the girth about a hand's breadth behind your horse's elbow. So instead of the girth being up in his armpit, you'll have a space there, and that will keep the saddle back. Your horse will love it. Number two, when you lift that leg, that scapula is going to swing back, and very big muscles make that happen on the underside of the scapula, on the lungs and the thoracic cavity, but also on the top of the scapula. The muscles are going to bulge, pulling that leg, pulling the scapula back while the leg strides forward. So you feel with your fingertips, where is that bulge? And it will be about a hand's breadth behind where the scapula was. So it's essentially there. And you are going to put in point number 3, critical third B, behind that bulge, you're going to put the lifting power of a shim. And I'm going to explain it with bigger diagrams than this. This is tiny. But and then you've got your saddle with the shim tucked in there, and you can test it by putting the shim underneath the saddle on top of your pad. And it should be, the best shims are tapered. So you have lifting power on one end, and then it transitions along your horse's body. And then you'll stand back and look at the saddle and say to yourself, all right, does it look like the lowest part of that seat is where I'm going to sit, or do I need to rebalance it? So the 4th B is balance for the rider. And in this case, this horse is built uphill. His withers are higher than his croup. So when you lift the front of the saddle a little bit, it's going to tilt, in this case, an English dressage rider, it's going to tilt the rider back more than a dressage rider would want to be. So you might put a tapered foam rear shim, which tapers the opposite direction and lifts the back of the saddle a little bit. But don't worry about it. Just clear the shoulder. And if you're unsure how to do that for your horse, please take advantage of our free saddle fit evaluation. We'll send you a diagram saying, put your shim right here. for this horse. Okay. All right. 4Bs. So I've just explained all that again, but here are bigger diagrams. Find the back of the shoulder blade. It's key to where to place your saddle. Okay. Find the bulge that happens when you lift that leg and the scapula swings back. There will be a muscle bulge. Make note of where that is. You can draw those marks with a chalk if you want, if you think you're going to forget when you put the legs down. Okay. So then that is your key. The second B, that bulge is the key to where to put the shim behind that bulge. And then you can tuck it in your pad, but for your first ride, and I've only put a little half pad in this diagram. The point is the critical part of your pad is what goes under the tree bars of your saddle to make sure your horse's back is protected. So just think of that being a pocket that you could tuck shims in. And if you want to experiment with it, though, you can just put the shim right on top of the pad under the saddle. The saddle will hold it in place for the ride, and you'll be able to feel the difference. And if you need it, the fourth B is balance, if you need to balance the seat a little bit. And usually that's in English riders or very, very uphill horses. Or if you have a very downhill horse, you may need to add another half shim in front to lift you back further so that your balance is where you need it to be. This diagram is an English saddle, and English riders generally like to have their seat balance more toward the center. Western riders are more like 7/8 of the way back in the seat.
Interesting.
Okay, and this is just an illustration. Typical trees built to fit horses' backs while
Oh,
they're standing.
that looks like it hurts.
I know it. I exaggerated. I mean, that's an exaggeratedly
Okay. I
one, but
hope that, jeez.
even if it fit that horse's shoulders before the horse lifted its back, when the horse tried to bulge, it still wouldn't be big enough. So,
Okay.
all right, there we go. And rock, it's called rock when a saddle is built to fit the downward swale of the horse's back. That's the natural downward curve.
Hmm.
That will create rock. And the horse, as you saw, even with that older Andalusian that was really low slung, they don't want that blocked by a saddle.
Yeah.
This is an interesting phenomenon. And people are going to think I photoshopped this, and I did not. I can tell you, this is an off the track thoroughbred this gal had, and you can see he had saddle damage. You can see him standing there, and there's that hollow behind the scapula, right? You can see the body of a horse will tell the tale of what he can and cannot use in his body when he's ridden. And you can see his hips are quite angular, right? You've got
Hmm.
the slight overdevelopment on the top of the hips, and then it slopes backwards. And his neck looks kind of skinny, right? And he has the hole behind the scapula. I'm I promise you, I did not play any tricks with this. This woman saw me walking by this day and said, "Oh, I know who you are. You're the saddle lady. Do you have a saddle I could try? I'm curious. I know my horse doesn't like his saddle." I said, "Well, the only one I happen to have with me is one of our super wide saddles, which could fit a Clydesdale bigger than your horse needs. But if I put a shim in the right place and a nice conforming pad and the saddle, you get an idea of whether or not it's worth it for you to take a test ride and win your size." So I put it on this horse. She swung up into the saddle, and that horse struck that pose like that. And that's a classic example of what I had seen, but I hadn't captured it on in my camera until that moment. I said, "Wait a minute, stay right there, don't walk off," because you can see all of a sudden he looks like a quarter horse. He's got a nice round rump, he's got a deep neck, he's arched over his top line, and it's just because it's the natural inclination of a horse to power up and get ready to carry weight. And to do that comfortably, I mean, if there's room in the saddle, they can do that. And he is now spread out across the back. He's engaged with his mother. You can feel it as if you were carrying a backpack. You spread your scapula and scapulae and push into it. But isn't that amazing?
Well, interesting. I don't know if this is significant. You can tell me, but the face on that horse on the left looks pretty sad. The face on the horse on the right. I mean, you can't make that up. You know, he's got
Well,
his ears forward, his eyes are more bright, his head's carried. Yeah.
he
Am I
never had
seeing that
felt like
right?
that. He had never felt like that in the saddle before, so I'm sure he was surprised. It was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's hard to explain that to people. All right, here's a case where I watched this gal um, with a very good instructor for 5 days. I happened to be there watching this clinic, and this is at the tail end, and she's trying to demonstrate what she's learned. And that horse, I had watched when she would saddle that horse, it was a mare. She would try to bite her every time. I photographed her face. I've got some wonderful pictures of that mare would contort herself trying to get at her when she was saddling. It was just tragic. But the gal she had a low budget and very, very narrow hips and she felt comfortable in her saddle. And so finally at the end of the class I said, Zoe, would you like to just take a test ride with a half pad and a set of shims and see if we can relieve enough shoulder pressure so your horse can travel more naturally? She said, I would I would really love it. So that's what that horse looked like by just that's with her crummy saddle, but just changing the half pad and shims. And
Nice.
it's amazing. You'd have to try it yourself to believe it, but I used just a thin tapered foam shoulder shim behind the backswing point. And then because that tilted her up too much, I added a thin tapered foam rear shim to rebalance her seat. And that was her first ride. The
Nice.
next day. It was the next day because the horse was already tired. And here she is because I just saddled her up and showed her how it did. And then I videoed what she said.
There's so much more room here now. I can feel how the scapula can move. And I noticed before I had this half pad, there was a whole piece, it almost looked like fat that was kind of squished up right here from the saddle. And now with this half pad, it's nice and flat. Doesn't look like it's constricting her at all.
Yep.
Good girl, Zoe.
And just with the shoulder shim at the maximum backswing point and a rear shim to lift you back to balance. Cool. Thank you, Olivia.
You brought the thing.
Nice. And this is her. Oh, this should, yeah.
Yeah.
Only the small change. So small, so powerful.
Yeah. So that's the just setting it back, not putting it all the way forward, trying to
Oh,
relieve the
yeah.
shoulder.
Even the placement of the saddle, it's obvious that you're back.
A hug sure beats a pinch or a pain. Yep. So you can see we build our saddles to that one on the top compared to the one on the bottom that's typical. So it's just more of a hug. And they fill it up because when they are able to expand horizontally and lift, um, they can be a lot happier carrying and a lot more relationship oriented for you.
That's great. And this is from the English side.
Yeah, in the English side. And we've got, if you're in the United States, it's kind of hard over there in New Zealand to do it, though we have we have saddles probably in 50 countries around the globe by now, and a number of them in New Zealand. We might even be able to find someone to let you borrow one and test ride if you're curious. But oh, and there's a trekker. I forget the name of her business. Her name is Lynetta Schoening, and she has bought, it must be 45 or 50 saddles by now because her trekking horses, she's up in the mountains and has beautiful trail rides, and she doesn't want her horses going in anything else. She started with one saddle, then bought a few more, and it's expensive to get a saddle down to New Zealand, but she really says it saves her on vet bills, and the horses are so much happier and more comfortable. So all of her horses go in our saddles, our pads, and our shims. We have a lot of trekkers who do that. A group in Norway, I know, has a whole bunch of them. Austin, Texas Mounted Patrol has bought over 30 saddles for all of their horses. They spend long hours in the saddle.
Free saddle fit evaluations and support. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
If you go to contoursaddlery.com or naturalhorsemansaddles.com. It all funnels into this umbrella, Contour Saddlery. You'll see free saddle fit evaluation at the top, and just follow the directions to send us the pictures that we need to see, and pose any questions you might have. We need to see a good profile of your horse with the head. You sent good ones, Andrew. All 4 feet and head to tail with the head up, and a good profile with the camera angle right in the middle of the belly, so it's perpendicular to the horse's body. I need to see that. And then it's great if you have a friend to help to tickle the belly so I can see how high can your horse lift. And then if you've got a saddle you normally ride, let us see a picture with the saddle only on the horse's back, and then a picture with the saddle pad and cinch and everything all girthed up and ready to ride the way you normally set it up, so we can see if we can make any suggestions about positioning the saddle for you, and then where we would recommend. And then if you've got help, we'd like to see pictures of you sitting in the saddle in case we have any recommendations for that. This is to make your system better. We'll tell you where to recommend putting a shim if you need more than one. Usually it's just one, right where I told you, but which one maybe we can help you with. And if you want to test ride one of our saddles, you can say so there, and we can figure out what size for you, what sport you want, whether you're concerned about weight in lifting the saddle, because we have some lightweight models we've developed, or lighter weight. The saddle has to have a certain amount of substance. We can't go all the way to some of these little Cordura things that you've seen are just not enough support. You need to have the substance of the tree that we've developed, and that weighs several pounds, so we can't really get any lower than about 22 pounds, 22 to 26 in our lightweight models.
Mm-hmm.
We have several different models, and you can check them out if you want to test ride one, and we'll ship something to you. And then I always say I would do a video consult with you while you test ride, rather than have you fumble around and not get the ideal experience from it. So,
Well, that's
because
what
it's not.
this slide shows your various brands, right? Which is
Yep.
Natural Saddles and
Right.
Dry Saddles, Glenn Saddles, and what is is that
Inspirante. That's
saddles? Yeah.
that's a Baroque saddle we're working on. Those Baroque people, they kind of like to sit there. They don't even post. They have really dramatic movements, Spanish riding school type movements. So
wonderful. All right, well, let
anyway,
me
it's all the same saddle. It's just different brands.
okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So one of the things I did want before we and right now I'm noticing I haven't seen any questions yet from the audience, which means you're probably covering it really well. But I just want to summarize with our weekend. When on the weekend, I was sent the shims, and I was asked to send a series of pictures. I think there were 4 that you chose, and then you asked me to send some pictures of my equipment, my existing saddle pad. And then we turned on the video and we started to go. And you were, I think we meant it to be an educational video, so we spent more time talking about exactly what was going on, because I wanted everybody to kind of understand and hear Letitia explain what was going on. Sonny's 28 years old. He fortunately, well, been wearing an airbag pad. One of the problems that I had was my airbag pad, I did not put the air closest to the horse. I was putting a pad closer to the horse, or a shim.
The shim. You had the shims underneath your air.
That made more sense, right? Because we want the air interface to be closest to the horse.
It's autodynamic as the horse goes along. It adjusts constantly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when we got into I found where the scapula was, and we learned where that bulge was. And then I was coached on where to put a particular shim in. And then I got on the horse and I rode him, and he immediately better than before. one of the things I think we might follow up on is maybe I ride him for a while, and then I'll call you to just double check that things are good, right? Because it's possible that is it possible? I'm speaking out of turn here, but would I expect for things to change, or would I expect that this is going to be good for a while?
Well, he's 28, and how many hours a week do you have a chance to ride? And if you're concentrating on developing his body in some way or conditioning him during different seasons, it may be that you could shift to the thinner shim. But I think at his age, likely that one's going to serve him.
Hmm.
I don't picture you conditioning him and riding the Yellowstone Ranch.
No, no. Sonny's
Oh,
actually, and well, he's actually becoming more of a Liberty horse because we love Liberty together. However,
that's good.
maybe he will get back to work. Maybe we will do more riding because he was starting to show that, hey, I'm really tired after these long rides, and my
Yeah.
wife's been coaching me to look away. But hey, we're going to see what happens now with this new, because we still do trail trials, we still do obstacle challenge, we still trail ride, and I still ride the ranch with him, and we have a wonderful relationship. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this next chapter leads with. Not only one, the recent uh, couple of days with Linda Pirelli, which she's got all kinds of new things going on, and our relationship, it took another level. And I will point out, I had been filmed riding Sonny in Linda's clinic. When I showed those films to Letitia, she said, "Andrew, look, your horse is not comfortable." And I went, okay. When she showed me those videos, I saw him different. And then when he had the shim, now we've only rode a few minutes, and you'll see it in the video should you choose to watch that released video. His head went down. Oh, the other thing was that you pointed out several times is almost immediately when we put the shim on with the saddle, he began to yawn. Lots of yawn, lots of head down. Now you remember that, right?
Yeah, I see it all the time. And the horses have so much anxiety when they know this equipment is going to hurt. I mean, people say that they don't have a frontal lobe and they can't think and all that. They know.
Hmm?
And the moment you put that shim in there and you had the right amount of air in, he went, oh, wow.
He did. He was, and she caught it because she saw the video while I was on the side of him working on things. She said, "Andrew, your horse is yawning and his head's down," and he immediately,
Over and over and over.
yeah, and he was doing, yeah, we saw it. I saw it because I edited the video, and I saw several times that he really had spent a lot of time yawning. The way you explained it to me, and I think it's absolutely makes sense, is a sense of relief that this time when I put the saddle and the pad with the shims and the balance with the VersaFit, that he was now a comfortable horse under saddle.
Yeah. And I will tell you, if you're going to do a video session, Saddle Fit, it's really helpful to have a cameraman. God love you. You did it by yourself, and that's hard to be coordinating the horse and keep the camera angle right and all of that.
Well,
You
thank
were
you.
a sport,
Yeah,
but
well, it's now that I
with
work in
you, it might
nonprofit.
be easier.
Well, now that I work in nonprofit, we have to be really creative.
I know. Yeah, I've
Well,
done a lot of this myself too, so I do understand. That's why we don't have more before and after videos and everything, because I don't bring a
yeah.
camera with.
No,
And you
I
never
just
know when
gotta.
you're going to have one
No,
of those
Pat and Linda
really
had it
great.
right. They have their own camera crew for when they were together. But hey, we got a question from Donna Robinson, and she asks, "How customizable are your English saddles? I just started my young horse. I'm currently riding her in a Western saddle, but plan on switching her to English. I'm very
Mhm.
short, and she has a short back. The dressage saddle I have fitted to her, but have not ridden her in it, has pony panels and short flaps. I really need a custom saddle for her and me."
Well, we can make the short flaps. We don't believe, based on our research, that saddles need to be as short as many people think. Traditionally, people have thought, oh my God, we don't want anything extending beyond the 18th rib. Horses have told us they would rather have you sitting on their hips than too far forward, and also rather have the saddle have the rider have enough room to move around and not be locked in and rigid, because they're trying to squeeze themselves into a small saddle. So I don't know what is the breed of your horse?
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna turn my video on because
That's okay.
I'm actually laying in bed in my pajamas. So,
Good for you.
You lucky duck.
so
Where are you
she's a
located?
warm blood. I'm sorry, I'm in Texas.
You have a warm
She's the one
blood.
in Dublin, Texas.
Yes, I'm in Dublin, Texas. I have a warm blood filly. Yes.
You do not need to worry about a short back warm blood.
Well, she's pretty tiny. Yeah, she's pretty tiny though. I say warm blood. She's never going to be a 17 hand. She's a 15-3 hand, little compact thing.
A
I can promise
Rhineland
you,
warm
you
blood.
don't have to worry about the length of these saddles. You should take a test ride maybe to convince yourself. We have Icelandic ranchers going in a ranch roper saddle. That's the saddle like Pat Pirelli rides. The short back is not the issue. We've become fearful. A short backed horse is going to get shorter backed if they carry themselves inverted. They drop in the center, even if just a little bit. The hips rotate forward, and the shoulder gets really, really rigid if it can't be really free. So if you set it back, remember I said it's an absolutely sacrosanct principle. Where's the back edge of the scapula? Set your saddle up behind. You want to ride dressage or which sport?
Dressage, yes, dressage.
You set the dressage saddle up behind that where your fingertips curl over, or up to 2 fingers behind it. In your case, I know you wouldn't be able to stand that. It's going to be right where curl over. That'll put your girth a hand's breadth behind her elbow, and you put a shim at the back swing point of her bulge, and you're going to have a wonderful ride, and she's going to love you. And hopefully, if she's young, she'll never have to wear an uncomfortable saddle in her life.
On the website, and I've looked at the dressage saddles. I'm a little bit lost between the different models. I mean, am I looking at what I want? Deeper seat, not as deep, how it sets you? Like, how do I choose between the models that you have that I would even be interested in test riding?
Okay. Basically, we make 2 models of dressage saddles. They're both monoflaps. We can make a dual flap if you want. It's the same seat. And it's just, do you like a Baroque rider likes to be held in? They like the slightly higher candle, deeper seat. They don't want to move a lot. Some people like if they've got the really wide horses particularly, and if they've been riding with Linda Pirelli, those people like a slightly more open seat. They want to move around a little bit more, and the twist for the rider isn't quite as narrow. So if you like to get the leg drape, and the professional riders, I've got a gal who took a horse to the Olympics, got in we call it the Classica, got in our Classica saddle the other day. And she said, my horse has never liked a saddle. And she's been sponsored by other saddle companies for years. She said, he's never liked any of these saddles. I can tell he loves this saddle already. And my leg drape is, can I ride it in the show? And many pros are saying that they like the really narrow twist and an obvious leg drape. Our other saddle, the Elite, is a little bit of a wider twist and a more open seat. Does that help you?
So explain the twist to me. So I bought a saddle for her last year. I had a saddle fitter come to my barn, and I tried a bunch of saddles. At that time, she wasn't broke. She wasn't going under saddles. So I threw all these saddles on my big fat quarter horse and test rode English saddles on my rope horse. And I can tell you, some of the saddles, I felt like I was sitting in them. And other saddles, I felt like I was sitting on top of them. And it was explained to me that has to do with the twist.
Just think of the twist as up where your thighs meet your crotch, kind of in that area. You've got that's the narrowest part of you, and you want your legs to drape around the horse and have good communication. And some people like to have that very narrow and to the point that it's almost empty underneath the inner part of your thighs just a little bit. And some people like to have more fullness under there. Hard to describe, worth taking a test ride. We charge $150 because that's what it is to ship it out and back. And you might even ask to have one of each put in the box so that you could experiment.
What's the name of the one that has the narrow twist?
Classica. The
The classic.
Classica. And
Okay.
that's a slightly deeper seat. And if you're starting a young horse, that's another thing. A lot of people who are starting young horses and want to do it in English saddles love the Classica because it will hold you in more securely.
I'm an English rider, dressage, hunter jumper, switched to Western, and now I'm trying to switch back. And it was easy to go to Western. It's really hard going back to English. And I've ridden English way longer than I've ridden Western, but I'm telling you, every time I sit in an English saddle, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. I mean, but I bred her to be a dressage horse. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll just ride in a dressage saddle when I show and ride my Western saddle the rest of the time. I'm having a really hard time finding something I'm comfortable in.
Yeah. Or you can get into working equitation and do your dressage in a Western saddle. That's a really popular.
I'm such a perfectionist and I like the very formal dressage, but we do actually have a large working equetation crowd. In fact, my horseshoer does working equitation. So it's kind of a growing sport here in Texas where quite a few people are doing it. Yeah.
Western dressage also. Tell me, what size person are you? What seat size? What height and weight are you?
I'm only 5 feet tall, which is so in the past, in my previous life, when I was actually riding English, I always did dressage in my jumping saddle because my legs are so short and the flaps on a normal dressage saddle are too long for me. So I'm 5 feet tall. I'm about 150 pounds, a little overweight, but I'm in a 14 and a half Western saddle, and the dressage saddle I bought was a 16 and a half. We tried a couple different sizes. The 17 just felt too big. I'm pretty comfortable in the 16 and a half. That's where I'm at.
Depending on when you order a test ride, we may have a 16 and a half, or we may send you a 17 and you'll know if you need a 16 and a half.
I did look at your website and it seems like everything was listed at like 17 or larger, but you can get like a 16 and a half if that's where I fall.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. We craft them in England and we craft them to order, and we keep ones in stock for generally when we send out a test ride, somebody doesn't want to send it back. So I have to order more to keep enough stock so we can keep that test ride system going. But it's balance is everything in life, isn't it? I mean,
so from my understanding, when adjustments are made, you're not adjusting the saddle, you're adjusting the pads, the shims underneath. Is that correct? So how do you
balance you?
So how do you choose a size for your horse? Like if one's wider or narrower, are like all your tree sizes the same, and then like a wide tree size and you just adjust the pad underneath? Or do you look at the horse's back and decide?
Yes. We look at the horse's back in general, and we have two basic sizes of Western or English. We call it our standard or our super wide, and horses love that. You need all the micro sizes, and you do not need anything that isn't like this.
So with a young horse, like I mean, she's 5, so she's gonna probably change for she'll probably grow for another year, and then her back will change when she gets more developed and in work. So you're just adjusting the shims as her back changes.
Yes, and you might want to start out with our standard and then have the tree adjusted 1 centimeter, and that might make enough of a difference for you. But if you have her under saddle and at 5, yeah, she's going to be developing some more, and it depends. She will develop wider between the legs and wider in her entire body if she is not restricted. Horses that are restricted in the shoulders end up more narrow. If you look at them between the legs, they end up more A-frame than they should. And horses in our saddles, like you saw that thoroughbred, I just gave you that one
Yes.
example. Thoroughbred. I mean, you can imagine how she looked like a warm blood, or he looked like a warm blood. And he was wider between the front legs too, because they can use more of their lungs. They can they can
Yeah.
just help.
I actually would be interested in doing a pad consult with you with my Western saddle, which is a custom saddle that was made by a very good friend of mine who was a horseshoer for most of his life. He spent his entire life watching horses move and did the same concept. He designed a tree for a moving horse versus a tree for a static standing still horse. But I don't necessarily know that I've had it padded the correct way and possibly
Happy
changing
to.
to your system. So I would just follow the steps on your website and submit the required photos and all of that.
And if you
Um,
want a live consult, the staff may charge you for that just because we are so busy. But
yeah, that's not a problem.
you know who Ty Murray is?
I do know who Ty Murray is. He lives in well, he used to live in Stephenville. I don't know if he still is. Yes. Yeah, I'm right on the
I
edge of I'm right on the edge of Stephenville.
He doesn't have an English saddle, but I'm telling you, he has all kinds of pads and shims. I just spent some time with him a couple of months ago because he tells everybody that that our saddle is the finest thing he has ever ridden. And he called me one day from his tack room because he had heard me give a talk down here in Florida, as a matter of fact. And he went home and thought about it, and he called me on FaceTime and he said, "Will you look at this? I think I have a saddle made by every saddle maker that's supposed to be a fine saddle maker um, in the world." And ever since I've heard you talk, I realize every one of these saddles hurts my horses. I have never ridden without a dry spot. I know that particularly some of them are not traveling rhythmically. I'm fascinated by this. Will you send me a saddle? So we paid for a test ride. And I said, we won't send it unless you let me set it up for you virtually so you know where to put the shims. Anyway, he got so excited about it, bought the saddle. He didn't ask for a deal. And since then has bought many pads. I think he gives them to some friends, but he really believes, and he's got so many shims and pads. If you're close, I'll let you borrow one. He has said, he said, "Leticia, I really want my future to be focused on being a lawyer for the horse." He said, "I grew up knowing that I could make a horse do anything, and I did." He said, "I'm ashamed looking back at it. I wanted to beat Larry Mahan's record, and I knew I just worked to do it." And he did. There are some people who say he's the finest cowboy to ever live. I think he won 9 times, didn't he? All around cowboy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that,
we have several of those kind of people in our area. Doesn't necessarily mean that they've devoted their life to trying to make the horses' lives better, but he keeps a pretty low
he is
profile,
now.
but he does a lot.
He,
He went to
oh,
Liberty Festival in Kentucky and he
uh-huh.
spoke at the Liberty Festival, and you can tell that, yeah, he's got a different level of commitment.
He does. He said, I want to make a difference for him." And he really speaks out about it. And he now realizes the importance of saddles. So he was asked to headline, he and Buck Brannaman headline the Montana University, Horsemanship University's big event a couple of years ago. And he told him it was going to be a learning seminar. So he said, "If you're going to have a learning seminar, you have to have Leticia Glenn come and speak and do a saddle makeover or something,"
That's great.
which I did. So it was cool. It was really cool to have him on my right and Buck Brannaman on my left, and have him lean across me to say, "Buck, I want to ride Leticia."
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I do wanted people to see kind of the level of discussion that she'll have with you and to encourage you to take advantage of what she's offering. Heidi just asked a question. She said, "I'd like to know the difference of thigh blocks on the English saddles and how to choose what is right for her."
Well, some people, if you have a long femur, you may like to have a short block because your knee won't run into the block as easily. and you won't have to ride such a big seat. So it depends on, do you like to be cupped and in deep into your horse? Then you might not want to ride with a larger seat. And your side block might get in the way if you have the one that's a full length that really holds you in. That's the only thing I can tell. We can make a saddle with movable blocks, and you can have several different sizes and experiment with them. We have one or two of those. They go out on trial and people decide where they want their blocks. But for the most part, we're finding half of the people like a short block and half of the people like a long block because they want to be held tight. They don't. So, do you have a long femur, Heidi?
Hi,
Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Whitefish, Montana.
Wonderful.
I'm recovering from a shoulder injury, well, shoulder surgery,
Yeah.
and I cannot lift my Western saddles. I've got a Western Performer or Natural Performer and a Durango Deep Seat, and I can't lift those on my horses at this time. So I'm considering buying a English dressage saddle to do dressage while I recover for the next year or so. I don't know I'm 5'4" and my inseam is 29 inches.
That's a short fender on the Western saddles.
Oh, okay.
Different
Yeah.
fender lengths. So you would be in the short fender is 27 to 30, and the medium fender is 30 and an eighth to 33. So
Okay. My Natural Performer is medium fender, and I'm about halfway down on that.
wow.
Yeah.
Longer than you think. Unless because I have 31-inch inseam and I'm a little higher up than medium. Well,
Okay.
anyway.
Okay. I think what I would do is do a test ride.
Yeah.
And I like the Elite. I actually like to move around a little bit more. I don't like to be clamped in.
And if you've been riding the alleyway, if you can, Heidi, do that saddle fit evaluation so we can see your horse and see you sitting in one of those saddles if somebody can put it on for you, and that'll help us size you better.
Okay.
You will love it, I tell you. They're wonderful saddles. They're wonderful saddles.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate you. Thank you. It sounds like you've been an early adopter to have both of those.
Oh, my Natural Performer is about 15 years old. And I have it on a Haflinger. I've got the super wide.
Yeah.
And and I have the first, I don't know what they were called back then, but the first air pad, and that's my favorite one to ride in.
Yeah, we call it the Theraflex. That's what Andrew has.
Theraflex. Yeah. And then
change the name. Yeah.
Okay. And then I got the TheraFit or VersaFit, I'm sorry. And I like that one too. And it's interesting. I go between the two of them based on how fit she is.
Oh,
and her
wow.
So I don't know.
Well,
maybe I'm doing it right. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but
we're always here for you if you have a question.
Okay.
We don't charge to evaluate whether you're doing it right or wrong. Just send us those pictures so we can help you. Just show me, among other things, put your pad on the ground, folded so you don't get dust on it or twigs in it, and take the shims out and put it on top of the pad and lay it exactly where you're using it.
Okay.
Right? And take a picture of that so I can see and advise, shift your shim back or forward or use a different shim or something.
Okay. All right.
But it is so simple when you get used to this. If you have the thick and the thin shims, you can play the piano for the rest of your horse's life, or play the piano. I always use that expression. You know what I mean? Just mix and match and tweak, learn principles of what to do. Really simple. Just preserve that scapular range of motion, that bulge, and balance your seat. It's simple.
How easy. Yep.
Roly-poly horses generally like the long shim seems to horizontally stabilize the saddle a little better than the shoulder shim. If you've got a mutton withered kind of a horse, maybe your halflinger
Oh,
would do
yeah.
better with the long. The long shim is double tapered in both directions. Oh, I've got one here. I
Yep,
brought it
I
all,
have.
Andrew. Yeah,
You're well prepared. I love it.
yeah. So here's the thin. If you've got a really roly-poly horse, you might only need this thin long shim. And that's
Okay.
tapered in two directions. It's got a thick portion here and it tapers. The taper point is right here. So you put
Uh-huh.
that at the backswing point, and just that is enough to lift pressure off. And then this stabilizes somehow, but it's not in the way of the shoulder because it's lifting from here.
Oh, very good. I have the
Yeah.
white foam pads.
Yeah. Let me they're light gray. Like here's the shoulder one. And this one
Yes.
tapers toward the
Remind
rear.
us, remind us what the difference is between the colors. Is that thickness?
Yeah, thickness to just make it easier. I say use
Yeah,
the brown one or the gray one.
yeah. Well, we did it together.
Brown
You
or
chose,
tan,
yeah,
the
you told
brown.
me which one to pull out on Sunny, and we did that in the video. Yeah.
Yep. So three different shapes. There's the front one,
Mhm,
the long one, and the rear one,
mhm.
and two different thicknesses. Yep. And then
All
the
right.
smart pad. The smart pad has this foam in that Andrew was discussing, and it's for the Western saddles. It starts out 3/4 of an inch thick, and it squashes down to absolutely nothing because the horse's weight, I mean the rider's weight in the saddle lets this mash around the horse's body, and then this compresses, but it doesn't lose any of its impact deflection factor. It's amazing stuff.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. It was. I remember holding it. It was like, wow, this is cool.
Whereas the air pad has those nozzles and there's foam inside there, but it's bigger baffled, so the air flows through the foam and it's more instantly responsive. The air pad and the Fairflex pad.
Hey,
And the
Heidi,
smart pad.
did you say you're using the air pad, Heidi?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, well, what happened was I used to have, well, I'm doing better now. I'm handling my back better, but 30 years ago, I couldn't sit down in a regular chair at work. And somebody turned me on to that air, that technology. Relax the Back was the name of the company, and they still do sell that. And I started using those, and that was wonderful because even if I'm sitting in a meeting for a long time, I could change it. I could open up the air, and it was discreet, and it really worked well. I carried it around everywhere I went. And then I'm an early enough adopter. Well, I don't know, compared to a lot of people who've been following the Pirellis for years. I started in 2000, and by 2001, I was riding with that one where you had to kind of push the air in. And then when they came out with the new one that had this same. Letitia, would you remind me the name of the designer? We were talking about him and how you.
Alan Brownlee. We call him
Yes, what a wonderful man. And
Yeah.
he was an industrial designer, and
Yeah.
he had taken that concept and then modeled it. And when I saw that, I went, "Oh, I'm going home with one." I mean, instantly. But it also made it so much more easy to use. And now my wife and I, we own three of them. We
They
wouldn't.
last forever.
I don't want to be
They
without
last-
them. I want to be
Yeah.
without. Yeah.
But some people didn't want to do the thing, so I researched this and found this foam. And see, it compresses. See if you can see that, and then it recovers. It's just a slower recovery.
But the
But
other thing,
anyway,
if I'm understanding, and I know enough mechanical to be dangerous is about it. But it seems that in the spots where there's the weight, it compresses. But in the spots where there's not weight, that means it's holding up, right? It might.
right. It
Yeah,
just conforms. It just
it's
conforms. But
conforming, which
even when
is
it's fully depressed, it does not lose its impact deflection impact deflection properties, except 2% maybe.
right.
But We should say that Pat and Linda Pearley were very instrumental in the testing of that pad with Alan Brownlee originally.
Yeah.
There,
Well, I remember at the time when we were, because I bought both pads. I believed in air from the start. I still believe in air. I like the fact that moves, and I was so thankful that you told me you were able to purchase the company so that
well, Alan asked me
Alan's
to.
work can continue, right?
Like my work will continue. I've got a
And your
great
work
staff.
can continue.
Really, really grateful. And that's why it matters so much to me that I get this seeming really simple to you now that we have boiled it down to as simple as it is. And it took a long while to get here. Oh my God. We experimented with everything, lots of trial and error. I mean, we were doing great things in increments all along the way, but it wasn't as simple as it is now. And
Oh yeah, and I can attest to that. I encourage everybody to watch the video. Go ahead for anybody who wants to stick around. I'll send you the link. Or you can email me at andrew@horsemanshipfoundation.org or horsemanshipfoundation.org, and I would be pleased to help you find that video. It's on our YouTube channel, and you'll see, because that's what the real experience of it. And I was literally live with Letitia, and she was in
and he
Ocala.
didn't have a cameraman, so
So no, and I had it up on a tripod. Yeah, my horse he behaved and everything. So, well, Letitia,
well,
I think we got to probably close up the evening because I know everybody can go all night. But hey,
I haven't had dinner. What time
yeah,
is it?
no, I hear you. I love you. Thank
Here.
you so much for sticking around, and for those of you that stuck around long enough to ask questions, so appreciate it. You're moving the dial in the revolution in horsemanship and what it means to mankind. It was Dr. Miller and Rick Lamb, but that was over what, 16, 17 years ago, and we know it's moved on. So one of the places we want to talk about that is here on IHF Live. We go 90 minutes into detail, and those of you around the world who are kind enough to join us live, and those of you that are watching this on tape, thank you for supporting us, and thank you so much, Letitia, for all your passion, all your hard work, which you continue to do. You're willing to take a chance. You're willing to do something new. When I look at our mission of the International Horsemanship Foundation, I want to say it here because it's enriching the lives of humans and horses through relationship-based horsemanship, education, communication, and community. That is so close to what your mission is. We really overlap, and I so appreciate it.
Can't have a relationship that's mutually satisfactory if the horse is uncomfortable. Rick Lamb, as a matter of fact, interviewed me, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I think we have that running somewhere on
Oh,
our
wonderful.
website. Yeah, he came out, he wanted me to buy a commercial on his show. And his solicitor, his marketing person kept saying, will you buy a commercial? And I said, I don't think Rick really knows what we do. And I'm going to be in California at a Dave Ellis clinic.
Oh yeah, Dave out here. Yes.
Yeah, the Dave Ellis clinic. And if Rick wants to come down, I mean, if you can coordinate his schedule, and I gave him my schedule, not just that. Anyway, we got together in Southern California, and he didn't expect what he ultimately found. And then he shot the thing, his wife Diana behind the camera, and went home and put together that interview that he ran on his show. He was just going to do a 10-minute feature, and he ended up doing the whole show because he was amazed at what he saw. So
well, I know you pretty well, and I'm pretty amazed at what we've been experiencing here in the last week or two. And so thank you once again. Thank you to all that are on the show here and with us, and to those watching on video from around the world. And may the horse be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. You do hard work. It's hard to do what you do.